This episode's made possible by Planful. Hello and welcome back to Planning Aces. This is episode 47. On this episode, we'll be featuring FP&A insights and commentary of three finance leaders, including CFO John Rettig of Bill, CFO Josh Schauer of insightsoftware, and CFO Zhang of ClickUp. This is Jack Sweeney, your co-host, along with performance management guru Brett Knowles, who will serve as our resident thought leader as we seek to highlight the takeaways from our distinguished group of Planning Aces. Hello, Brett. I know you're here somewhere. I can see you glistening in the distance.
Yeah, there's no way I can place those lights where I don't get this sheen. In fact, to tell you how far away I got, I even bought these glasses, which are no glare glasses, so that they don't pick up the glare from the things.
Really? You put a lot of thought behind this then.
I'm
a little surprised you didn't master that. Get rid of the glare.
Get some hair to grow back?
Well, why not? I'm sure there's a AI tool readily available that I can implant new hair on Brett's head. And while I'm at it, why don't I just formulate this conversation or have a AI Jack engage real Brett?
Right. And so I think already it has the ability to listen in real time, and you should be able to prompt it in advance. So you should say, listen to Brett and come back with humorous but disruptive comments on what he has to say, or listen to Brett and come back with complimentary things that augment what he's saying. Or come back with complimentary things and then turn that into a controversial contradiction to what he would have said. And that should come up in real time. So as I'm talking right now, it's going to be drafting a response for you. So at any point in time when I shut up, you can then go, wow, Brett, that was really insightful. You've seldom been so brilliant. But I'm wondering how it is you would possibly imagine, right? Like,
turn it on its head. Turn Brett on its head, please. Right. Whatever he hears.
At that point, you become a talking head. At that point, the conversation is formed by AI. And I suggest that's in version 1. So imagine what version 3 looks like. Right? Smarter than us, and literally could even decide, if you've watched the Terminator, to wipe us out, and then it would be smart enough to create a new being that, I don't know, did whatever it needed us to do, like press the accept button every time it wanted. Anyways, I don't think that's a year ago. That was a wild dream where saying, "What are you smoking?" Now I'm going, very possible.
Well, there's having continued to interview these different finance leaders over time, the notion that turn back the clock 5 years ago, there was FASB was changing an accounting rule or something. There was it would be the controversial rule that I might spring on a finance leader to, have them share some comments as to how this might impact their finance function or their accounting function. Now, this whole AI realm, finance leaders are expected to sort of be thought leaders in the space. And what we're seeing is this intensity now. And I think that's what we'll see with each of these three that we'll feature today. They're not just tiptoeing around change. Each of them really sees themselves as, being a champion of AI and bringing change, driving change.
Yes, I think you're right. I think there's a huge role for FP&A in advancing AI, not only in our space and execution of what we're doing, but also in translating the organization's strategy into capital and making those guidances while living within regulatory constraints, right? And international regulatory constraints. What do I mean by that? I mean, you can make a decision here in North America that you could not make in Central America, or you could do something in Central America you couldn't do in Africa. So now in FP&A, as we take a look at different proposals, we have to look at it in light of regional regulations, which is overwhelming at this point. But now we begin using tools like AI. So both in the FP&A process and in the broader organization, I think we are key champions and maybe even the most important champions in moving AI through.
Is there before we start teeing up our planning aces, was there, what did you see as a theme or a sort of a shared touch point among them?
Oh, you're looking to sneak at the back of the book and to see what the story looks like.
I want to whet the appetite.
Yeah, I think each of them have a quotable quote. One talks about the hidden tax. Another talks about ROI's dads use the best interests of business. There's another interesting quote that is called the prove it mentality. So I think we're going to learn a lot from today's 3 planning aces.
Ready to plan confidently, close faster, and report more accurately. Here's what sets Planful apart. Imagine purpose-built applications for every department, from FP&A to accounting, marketing to HR, all with built-in financial intelligence. It's easy to implement Planful in just weeks and with minimal IT involvement, so you can rapidly and seamlessly engage everyone across the business on your key financial progress. Best of all, Planful grows with you. Its unparalleled scalability ensures that no matter how fast your business expands, Planful can keep up. See why over 1,500 customers worldwide choose Planful as their flexible, user-friendly, end-to-end financial performance management platform. Go to planful.com/CFO Thought Leader to see how you can reach peak financial performance with Planful.
I'll go ahead then and tee up our first planning ace, who will be CFO Dan Zhang. Now, this is a recent episode we published, but she began in FP&A at Amazon and Zynga, later scaling a go-to-market strategy at AppDynamics, before leading AI-driven finance transformation, that's how she puts it, at ClickUp, where she's now CFO. Here is what Dan Zhang shared with us.
Yeah, so we took a very contrarian approach of building ClickUp from day one, because 8 years ago, there were a lot of best in breed kind of point solutions, right? There is, the best whiteboard tool, and there is the best chat tool, right? Over those years, especially, during the go-go time, the ZERP area, that every CFO, every company, they procured a lot of like SaaS tools. All right. So ClickUp took their approach that we want to build all-in-one converged software applications. So you can do everything about work on this platform. And it was very hard to build, right? Because you need to make sure your architect that you need for infrastructure can support all these different applications on one platform, right? All the data structure needs to be designed in a way that can scale many, many folds after that. So because we took this approach, like I said, now we have become the system of record for all the work data that happens between the employees and between the employee and the AI. Because think about how many times that you need to copy and paste something in your chat tool, either, a Slack or a Microsoft Team, into a project management tool, right? And how many times that you need to copy and paste something, a project management tool, to a spreadsheet, so you can run some of the analysis or some of the collaboration on that. All this are hidden tax for your employees because they're losing time, they're losing context, and things are falling through the cracks. And it's very costly for the CFO and for the business as well, right? All this money that they spend on multiple different tools, then the ROI just start to not make any sense. And I think that what's more, a bigger pain is for the management team, the leadership team, because they don't have the bird's eye view of everything that matters to them that's happening in the business. And the result of that, the pain point of that, which is what we've been hearing time and time again from our customer, is as a C-suite, I don't know how my project ABC is going. And if that project couldn't deliver on time, it's going to cost me millions of the top line. Right? It's going to cost me millions of my bottom line. So that's what we set out to solve. And I think that the timing couldn't be better for ClickUp, because in the AI world, right? So what's the real moat? It's your data. It's your workflow. It's your speed of execution. Right. So we have all the data on the platform now because we built over 30 applications that people are using without switching to a different tabs. And we have all the workflow orchestrated on our platform as well. People do everything on this platform, and we have the speed of execution. Right. We are 8 years old company. We're the fastest grower in our category. We're the first to the market of our AI offering, right? So that's in the DNA of the business, and we're gonna, carry it through into the future. So that's how we seeing that why AI is such a tailwind for the business and really accelerated our core offering.
I see where you got the hidden costs or hidden tax theme you shared. I think that might have been Dan Zhang. I could be wrong though. Brett, what did you make of what Dan shared?
Absolutely right. The key, a bunch of takeaways from her stuff. The one I liked most, since you brought it forward, is her conversation about there being a hidden tax. And if you think of tax is something you pay on top of every transaction you do that costs above and beyond what you first thought. And she's talking about the tax on our employees, which is things that are consuming resources above and beyond what we planned for. And not exactly her context, but in our context of AI, not using AI leaves employees paying a hidden tax. So the example that we talked about earlier on today was, as I'm concerned about regulatory compliance, right now, if I'm having a human do it, there's a fair amount of work and research you have to do to find out what regulations affect that transaction in that jurisdiction. That could take hours or days, whereas AI could do it in minutes. In other words, if you're not using AI, you have a hidden tax on your people. What does that mean? Obviously, a productivity drain, a competitiveness drain, and ultimately an opportunity cost of taking longer to make a decision, or even needing to consult with FP&A to make that decision. With the example I just gave, the people that were proposing that project could actually look up what are the regulatory constraints to that transaction, that jurisdiction, even before I went to my planning team. What does that mean? It means that the quality of projects that come to us for review are way better because they've already done the foundation work.
Well, she continues to emphasize, I believe, throughout, and this kind of underscores, I think, your thought there, how data and workflows, the connection, that equals FP&A success, I think is the point she was making.
Right. And
data and workflows.
And ClickUp is all about dealing with what the common term is SaaS overload. SaaS overload is the fact that organizations keep on buying, point applications in the SaaS world, like her example, a whiteboarding application, different than a spreadsheeting application. And eventually you have so many different tools at play and often overlapping tools. So for project management, I could have 2 or 3 tools at play, Jira, Asana, Trello, and so on the same organization. And now I'm training people on 3 different tools, or I have, disconnects and so on. And the solution to that 5 years ago was APIs, like, the automated protocols between tools to get them to share data. APIs are now being made obsolete by AI. In my AI instrument, I can say, take a look at this Asana tool for this project, take a look at Microsoft project for the same, take a look for in Trello, and give me a consolidated view, and AI can do that for you. Now, that's a different solution than ClickUp. ClickUp is saying just use one tool, don't buy 5. And so there are benefits to both approaches, but the ideas that she was communicating around ClickUp are available to all of us leveraging AI instruments in those same processes.
So let's tee up our next planning ace, who is CFO John Rettig of Bill. John's career spans, well, he's got two CFO volumes side by side, both 10 years. And he's been at Bill for 10 years now. During that time, Bill has grown from 13 million to 1.5 billion in revenue. So it's quite a hefty chapter for him. Here is John Rettig.
It's amazing the pace of change with AI over the last couple of years in particular. And if AI isn't a central investment theme for your business and finance team, then you're likely, behind the curve. At Bill, we've actually moved pretty quickly to adopt AI tools for customer support, sales processes within our go-to-market team, risk management related to, better managing credit exposure, all these sorts of capabilities. As it relates to the finance function specifically, we're investing in tools to help with process automation. So think large-scale reconciliation tasks involving, billions of dollars of funds and millions of transactions and things like that. SOX documentation and walkthroughs and other process automation. I think we're a little bit earlier in the journey, but excited about what we've learned so far about the significant opportunity for AI to help us with the forward-looking parts of finance. So the modeling, the predictive capabilities and analytics, those are things that are kind of up next for us. And frankly, AI is going to change the entire role of the CFO and finance to be, I think, much more impactful and delivering even better value for the business. I think at great companies, there's always more ideas than there are people and sometimes even capital to pursue. So at Bill, we have a ton of innovation ideas that include, AI and shifting investments there. And it's even true in the market that we serve. There's been a bunch of data recently that says, small businesses believe AI is going to impact their business and that will increase significantly over the next couple of years. I'd say that the role of finance is to always be the linkage between the strategy and priorities of the company and resource and capital allocation. Maybe not the decider. It depends on the part of the business, but in the case of Bill, AI priorities are now woven throughout the entire fabric of the company across every discipline, every department. Yes, there's some opportunities to invest more aggressively, and sometimes that involves trade-offs. But making sure that there's a solid understanding on what you get for the investment and what the paybacks are. And there could be instances where you're investing across multiple time horizons. So maybe there's a set of initiatives that will impact the current year that you're operating in, whether it's financial or customer results or otherwise. And there's some other ideas that maybe take 2 or 3 years to mature. So getting that right horizon, investing, and if it's out there on the horizon a little bit further, then maybe there are some prove it milestones that can be helpful. But at the end of the day, it's that partnership and dialogue with either functional or business leaders that there is probably an objectively right answer on the allocation of capital, in particular as it relates to the rate or the pace of accelerating investments in AI.
Brett, I think AI is embedded across strategy and structure. I mean, this is something he more than once emphasized during our talk. What are your takeaways from what John shared?
We could do a full episode just on John's conversation. That was what I call a data-rich experience. I liked his very first comment that basically if you're not on the AI wagon, you're a dinosaur, you're going to be left behind. AI is, that critical. He sort of described what you and I have talked about before as a low-hanging fruit, how I can do process automation, SOX, those sorts of things. What I thought was interesting is he said, what's to come at Bill is the predictive side of AI, how AI is going to help us better do the predictive analysis that we need to do in FP&A. Thought that was interesting. And he went on to say, and that's basically going to change the role of finance. Again, a nail that I've been hammering with you for some time, that, I think this finance role is going to change drastically in the next couple of years. So I thought that was worth listening to. Then, and I'm almost doing a recap of what he said. Yeah. Another highlight was when he said that Bill, like any other company, has more ideas than capital. Then comes the clincher that you described. And therefore, finance has to be the linkage between strategy and capital. So got more ideas that AI is going to bring to the table, and I've got capital. How do we determine what that best investment is? And so I thought that was sort of a super important point that we all need to understand, that we are that bridge between strategy and capital. And so the part that he went on to talk about was what I thought was a quotable quote, which is a prove it mentality. He's saying you can't accurately calculate the ROI of AI. And so to a certain extent, you need to have this prove it mentality. And even if it's a multi-period project, at the end of each period, multiple milestones, keep on proving it as you go down the path. It's not fire and forget.
Yeah. And is FP&A plays a role here, sharpening that dialogue that John's sharing, that aligning of capital to strategy with pressing time horizons?
It absolutely forces it. And so, hence our comment in the introduction here, where finance is going to be largely responsible for the introduction of AI. If they're doing the linkage between strategy and AI in those projects and capital allocation, we effectively become the gate that chooses how we're deploying AI and how we're going to be competitive in tomorrow's world. If we shut down awesome projects, that's to the demise of the company. If we accelerate AI projects that take us into new spaces, again, it's the FP&A team that does it. So it's interesting that his two comments, we're the link between strategy and capital, and this new prove it, not ROI based analysis is, again, taxing what we've learned in the last 40 years of FP&A.
One of the, he's one of those CFOs. He just brings home the fact that, only 12 months ago, our conversations were so different. And I felt like he's making AI suddenly sound like it's table stakes. Yeah. We used to talk about, but AI as table stakes, how should finance leaders, in light of that, rethink their investment prioritization? And he's just saying, hey, this is a baseline, investment.
Absolutely. And if you listen to him, clearly he's there, he's a long way down that road and being very generous, sharing with us what he's learned along the way. And, you can tell if you're going toe to toe with an organization like Bill and you're not doing those things, it's clear that Bill's going to find the upper hand.
Well, we had a really interesting discussion a while back with CFO Josh Schauer of insightsoftware, and he's got an interesting chapter where he joins insightsoftware via an acquisition, Longview. I believe it's a Canadian company. They acquire Longview, and he comes along for the ride and sticks around and advances into the CFO office eventually. But he was involved during that chapter with so many other acquisitions and is so, has deep insight into the role FP&A plays when companies are being acquired, how he wants to structure his FP&A. So just loved our discussion with Josh and learning more from him. He began his finance journey in private equity-backed software firms before rising through, a series of strategic finance roles. And as I said, was eventually joined insightsoftware like so many, I would think, other finance professionals have through acquisition. But here is Josh Schauer, CFO of Insight Software.
Yeah, I'm very biased because that was my team 9 months ago, in terms of what we were able to do. But yeah, look, we take a lot of pride in what our FP&A team does. Like, first and foremost, we do what we call agile forecasting, which is quite unique. And what that means is every single day we've got an updated forecast. And so a lot of businesses might forecast monthly, quarterly, semi-annually is not abnormal. Every single day we're updating our forecast. We've got new hires, we've got terms, we've got contracts being signed, both with regards to customers and vendors, et cetera. And then at the end of every week, we are sending a forecast to our board with qualitative assessment as to here's what changed. So we've got a very kind of robust forecasting process. In terms of the market the last 5 years, it was quite a roller coaster, starting with COVID and interest rates and inflation and the Great Resignation and all of these different things that made it difficult to be an operating partner at a business. And so the idea of agility and predictability just ramped up, right? Cash management was really, really critical, especially for highly acquisitive companies that have debt. Interest rates skyrocket, and oh boy, can you service your debt? So all of those types of questions from sponsors, from lenders really increase. We were in a pretty good position because we do agile forecasting. We didn't have to take 90 days to go and learn our business. And so because of that, we were on the front end of being able to raise increased revolver, being able to hedge our interest rates and do those types of very predictive, proactive engagements for the business. So our FP&A team, they pride themselves on at any point in time being able to say, here's where we are today based on the activity of yesterday. Here's where we're going to be next week. Here's where we're going to be next year. And here's where we're going to be 5 years from now. Yeah. So it's kind of a fascinating question because ROI, as it pertains to AI, can be quite difficult, in fact, right? For CFOs like me, that's actually one of the challenges. We like numbers, and we like to say, hey, if I'm going to put $1 million in, I'm going to get 2 million out. Funny enough, we use AI to build ROI calculators for our tools. That's one of the first bit of value that we got, which is something that used to be quite difficult to quantify for customers, which is, yes, our tool's $40,000, you're going to save $200,000. Kind of ironically, that's one of the first things that we did. There's a bit of a leap of faith with AI that I think you have to take, which is that that by spending money on these different dev tools and things, you're going to gain efficiency. And the teams are going to gain efficiency. And you want to be able to say, hey, we're going to be 30% more efficient. We're going to be 40% more efficient. And in some ways, you can calculate that. Like in support, you've got ticket deflection, cases that are deflected where we used to have a body doing that, and now AI is doing that. And you can put dollars to that. But there is an element of not trying to wait until everything can be perfectly quantified and you've got some ROI calculator that's going to give you a perfect assessment, because you have to just take a leap and know that while I might not be able to validate it and prove it in real time, this is by far in the best interest of the business. And so in that way, we don't have specific ROI calculators, but we certainly have improved efficiency and improved KPIs and metrics that then inherently are obviously a return on that investment. And AI has very much changed the landscape of M&A for a few reasons. And the first of which is you need to be asking yourself, the product that you're acquiring, can it be replaced by AI, right? How much of it is at risk because of AI? That's one of the questions you have to be asking yourselves. The other one is, can we build this with AI? It's another question you have to be asking yourselves because of the tools like Replit and Lovable and the different engineering and development tools. And then the third question you have to be asking yourselves, even if it is an AI forward or AI powered or driven solution, is, was this built by AI and was it built in a weekend? Because AI can do so many remarkable things like this. Is this a real product, or is this something that over the course of 3 weeks was spun up? It looks and feels great, but as we start to get under the covers, we're going to say, oh, I don't even think engineers built this, and so there's several questions, and it's really changed the way that our corp dev team looks at opportunities.
Part of what he brings home too is just that forecasting with daily precision. And I think he refers to it as nerve. He has confidence and nerve when he's forecasting the future these days. What did you take away from Josh Schauer?
Yeah, all the things that you talked about as you introduced the tape and what you just said now. In addition, I think he sends a strong message about what is the cadence of FP&A. So it's no longer once a quarter report out to the board, or once a month report out to management. He's talking about weekly reports out to the board. And he outlines a number of competitive advantages that it gives them. And I'll list those off in a second, but that was a key lesson. I think for all of us, the cadence of business is so much faster than it used to be. And in many cases, we have not changed the cadence of our processes. So the world is changing faster than we're adapting or can react. So in his example, by having sort of weekly board updates, and I loved his term, a highly acquisitive company, not inquisitive, but acquisitive, because they're making acquisitions. I thought that was cute. Hadn't heard that word before. His agility in forecasting allowed him to raise capital much faster than the other people and get in and out of markets. So I would add yes to all your points, but what he also brought to the table is that interesting realization that the pace at which we've got to do FP&A is way faster than it was before.
Do you think that's he's revealing what is a new standard for agility? Are other businesses at that level?
I don't know if other businesses are at that level. I would say that he is not as agile as one will be in 5 years' time. So yes, way better than everyone else. But again, imagine driving to work. If you could only look out the windshield once a week or take a look at the gas gauge once a week, you can have a bunch of failures on that trip to work. And with all the tools we're talking about with AI and other SaaS tools, there's no reason why this cannot be real time. In other words, at any point in time, I press a button, can see exactly what's going on, no different than the dashboard of your car. And I believe, with the cadence of business. So, if you think of recent conversations about tariffs, they're on one day, they're off the next day. We have a 15% agreement. We have a 30% agreement. No, it's a 10% agreement. Every time those statements are made, there is a ripple effect in the markets. And if you could take advantage of that ripple effect, even in the last 6 months, you'd be a rich person just because there have been so many ripples. And that's going to do nothing but continue going forward. And I don't think that's a forecast. That's a fact. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there about agility. I think we should take that lesson. The second lesson, and there's 3 from him, was his whole leap of faith, right? He embellished more what John talked about of you can't do a hard calculation on AI stuff. You've got to do ROI, but also make decisions based on, and I quote, the best interest of the business, close quote, that leap of faith.
And I want to just mention, that's the challenge here. I mean, he's saying that we need to take a leap of faith with AI. And the question, of course, is how can finance reconcile that with its deep roots and quantifiable ROI and always being a gatekeeper?
Right. I think there's a lot of your listeners that will need to be going through therapy in a year or two, because that's going to go away. And if you wait, as he said, if you wait till you get a hard ROI, you've lost the race already, right? Someone else has already grabbed whatever share it was you're hoping to grab onto. So that's his second lesson. The third one, I think, was super interesting. Now, it's only going to be of interest to some of your listeners, but it's all about M&A. And he began to give us a bit of an algorithm that we now need to think about because of AI. And there are 3 points to that. One was, whatever the product is you're looking to acquire could actually be replaced with AI. In other words, I don't want to buy a company that a year from now, AI is going to do that job anyways. That's, test number 1. Test number 2 is, could this product be developed by AI? So great product idea. It took them 3 years to do it. We could actually do it in a couple of weeks' time using AI. Therefore, not a good acquisition. And again, these are decisions I did not need to make a year ago. Then the third one is this a real product? Or was this something cooked up over the weekend in AI and AI has made it look like a real life integrated working product, but it's just a facade? Those are 3 tests, man, we never had to worry about before. And of course, he's rattling them off like, why wouldn't you be doing this already? And
he makes a comment there I think is interesting, and in regards to, we don't know if there were any engineers involved with this, or do they have any on the team?
Yeah.
It might just be spun up.
Yeah. Again, for those listeners who do M&A work, I think those are three really important messages. Replay the tape and play them down and take notes. But even if you're not, even if you're just looking at a regular business and you're worried about what the competition is doing, those three tests work. So is my competitor doing something that's going to get replaced by AI anyways? Because if they are, I might take a different stance in competing with them. Is my competitor introducing something that we could develop ourselves using AI? Again, didn't think about that a year ago. Now I can. And the third question, just restating Josh's questions in terms of competitive pricing situation or any other competitor. Are they competing against us with a real product, or are they selling snake oil? A good illusion, but there's no real product behind it. Same three tests used in a competitor. Yeah. Now, you can do the same three tests for any project that someone's coming to us with, right? Is this project going to produce a tool that can be replaced by AI in a year's time? Is this project really worth all this investment, or can I just do it with AI? And with this project, is this actually a real project, or is it going to just be a facade? So I really liked his three tests that we can use in a number of different applications.
And I thought it was kind of impactful, actually, playing those two clips together, John Rettig and Josh Schauer. And clearly they're the most of the three thematically aligned, I would say. Both emphasize AI's sweeping operational impact and the importance of forward-looking, efficiency-driven finance. They also underscore the CFO's evolving role in strategic alignment and, as you highlighted, capital deployment.
Well, so survey says 2 out of 3 CFOs are already deep into AI.
Yeah, no, that's what excited me about the episode when I saw both those clips. Yeah. I was like, oh, right, something for Brett to chew.
Oh, yeah, no, these are, as I said, for both Josh and Build.com, John, we could easily spend a full episode plowing through their points. Like, very, very sharing and insightful comments from both of them.
And the takeaway, maybe we shared this before, for me anyway, you've highlighted it on an earlier episode, but what I think struck me today, and it as we went through this again, is how these CFOs are using AI, not just for FP&A, not just optimizing operations, but to sharpen the enterprise's sort of strategic reflexes.
Yep, absolutely. There's no doubt.
Faster running time, smarter, more connected decisions.
Yeah, the linkage from that is, I think our organization charts in 5 or 10 years' time will be very different than they are right now. Right now, I need an FP&A team where I can go to and ask these questions. Obviously, that's all going to be done by AI in 5 or 10 years' time, right? They'll understand the analysis and the strategy and the linkage and the capital and do all that stuff. Now, I still need an FP&A team, but I don't need the depth that I have right now, and I don't need to go to them to process these ideas. I can process them in advance and take my ideas and refine them much more before I take them to FP&A, or before I take them to marketing, or before I take them to sales, or before I take them to operations. In other words, all these departments become less functionally oriented, and our new organization charts can be more project oriented. Once I decide I'm going to go do that project, I will have the knowledge I need from sales, marketing, and FP&A available to me through AI. I don't need to have a department that have to then go off and visit and ask those questions and process it. So that's just the broader implications, Jack, of what you just said.
Well, I'm hoping we can have you'll invite me into Brett's schoolhouse here, as I have in the past. What is the question you think we should be asking these finance leaders? Don't charge me. So.
If it were a court case, I would build a line of questioning that sort of said, are you using AI? If yes, how much are you using it inside of FP&A to ensure regulatory compliance? And once they talk about that, you say, well, and how much would you expect your other departments to actually use AI to check regulatory compliance before they come to you? So I'm slowly painting them into a corner, because if they're not suggesting that their internal customers should be using AI to do a lot of the FP&A work, it shows that they're dinosaurs. It proves that they're trying to sustain their own department as opposed to move the organization forward.
Interesting. Wow.
Now, as I said, well, if it's a court case, right, you're trying to sort of slowly paint them into a corner. And so that's one way to go with the conversation. The other way is to say, let's compare who you would have hired 5 years ago to who you'd hire today. And then
now I do ask that question.
When you got that one done, you then say, great. Now let's compare who you'd hire today to who you'd hire 5 years from now. Or we're now 5 years.
What does this team look like? What does this team look like in 2029?
Right.
You know,
or how does this process get done in 2029? Because this team ain't going to be there. So again, they're different avenues, but what I try to do is use those as a tool to see as a barometer how far along that journey they are.
Right. And again, it's like we're aboard a moving train, the parallel or the bus. Things are moving so quickly now that even the line of questioning or discussion, you said open up with a broad discussion. Are you using, AI? And that's typically how we do it. We allow the finance leader to narrow the lens for us so we can discover. But things are moving so quickly that we need to rethink these.
There's so many quotes out, from turn of the century. People were saying, in the UK, gosh, you made a train that's going 45 miles an hour. Everyone's going to die on that train. It's going so fast they won't be able to get air into their lungs and they'll just suffocate. Those stories about how we'll only need to invent one computer. Like we only need one computer to run the world. Or, whoever wanted to hear sound along with the movie. Like there's so many of those quotes where people are not able to imagine what this future world looks like, and are almost being Luddites, right? The story of Luddites are, in the UK, a lot of jobs are getting, a large part of the UK economy was wool and textile. And those were, people taking the wool and hand cleaning it, hand stringing it, hand weaving it. And as tools came along that automated those processes, obviously replacing hundreds of people, people began to sabotage the equipment and burn down the buildings and so on. And that group was named after a fellow whose last name was Luddite. So Luddites are people that are trying to stop the advance of technology, in hopes that the world as is will continue going forward. And this is, that Luddite behavior is, where many organizations are not seeing that, yes, whether you use the bus analogy, the train analogy, the plane analogy, they're all going faster than you're walking. And the bottom line is the bills and the, other companies are on the bus, on the train, on the plane. And it really doesn't matter which one you're on. Just stop walking. Don't be a Luddite.
Well, thank you, Brett. School's out once and for all. Everyone on the bus. And don't be a Luddite. For Planning Aces, I'm Jack Sweeney with Brett Knowles. Thank you for a nice episode, Brett. And till next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.